Hi, this is Rachel from the Dotting Center. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to dot another design in our colorful dot art bauble collection. This is an easy beginner level project that will take your boring old Christmas balls and turn them into festive, bright, shiny, colorful dotted works of art. I'm so happy that you could join me today. Now let's add another bauble to our collection. We're going to do this one. For this project, you'll want to pick 8 to 10 of your favorite acrylic paints. I love Deco Art fluid paints. They are great. I also used some multi-surface paints, and I used different brands. And in this video, I'll cover the difference. There is a difference between the two, and you might prefer one over the other. Also, you'll need a blank Christmas bauble. You will also need some kind of chalk pencil or marker. When I make these on my own, I will use either a watercolor pencil or a chalk pencil. The reason I don't use pencils for videos is because the lines don't really show up on camera. So I use chalk markers, and you can find these anywhere. I don't recommend them, however, because they are inconsistent. They'll mess up the surface of your bauble, which I will show you in the next video. You'll also need a strip of regular paper, and you'll need some dotting tools. Might I suggest these fine tools from the Dotting Center? And so new to 2021, we now have these tools with white tips. Now the numbers are visible, but if you want them to be even more visible, just place a little bit of black acrylic paint right into the deboss section where the number is, and just wipe the excess away, and then you have your numbers nice and bright, and they show up really well. And as another tip, you can take the blister pack that those tools come in, cut it in half, and this then becomes a cute little tool holder for your tools. So here we are. This is a 2.5-inch bauble. It's shatterproof, and I'm using a strip of paper as my measuring tool. You'll need a pen and a chalk pencil, or a white watercolor pencil, that would work. Now the first thing, we want to find the horizontal line on our bauble. So the first step is we're going to take our piece of paper and just measure along the seam on our bauble. So that's going to give us the circumference minus that little ornament topper. Take the piece of paper and fold it into 4 equal sections, just like this. And then take your pen and mark each of those fold lines. This cuts your bauble in half. And what you're going to do is place it along the seam so that you know that you have it exactly vertical. So this is going to be your center line. So you'll want to measure down all the way around your bauble so that you end up having a center line that goes all the way around. And then once you get to the end, you'll just connect all of those. Now this wasn't showing up very well for the camera, so I pulled out the chalk marker. I'll also pull out the warning. Do not use chalk markers. I know that now, and I make the mistakes so you don't have to. But stick with a pencil, a chalk pencil, a watercolor, something, a pencil. Anything but a chalk marker, please. All right, so now we're going to mark the vertical seams. Now this is a plastic shatterproof ornament, so those are already kind of lined up for you. And that's all the measuring we're going to do. Now this one, I'm going to start with the number 12 tool and place a dot just on the crosshairs at each of those marks on the bauble. The paint that I'm using is Deco Art Americana Premium, which is why it's a thicker bodied paint. And you can see that it really holds up well on the surface of the bauble. So once you have 2 dots placed on either side, line that bauble right up to your vision, and then put a dot right in between And now try and see if you can fit 2 dots in between those. If you can't, don't worry, just put 1 and then you can fill in the space with smaller dots later. But if you can fit 2 dots in between, that's great. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So line it up, place a dot right in the center, and then we know that we can fit that tool 2 times in between those 2 dots. So this is why I like to spend the first few dots on the center line of the bauble, because this is really going to be where it faces out into the room. So this is going to be really visible. So you want to get these dots really, really nice and spaced out. Now we're going to take the number 9 tool, and the whole formula for this entire bauble is basically placing a dot in between the 2 previous dots. So basically each row of dots fits in with the previous row like a puzzle piece. This paint is DecoArt Americana fluid paint. This is a high flow rate paint. Now we're going to switch to number 11. This is one of the larger sizes. And the same thing, we're going to place a dot. Just pick any random color that you would like. And we're going to take that and again, find a spot in between the 2 previous dots. And we're going to carefully place that right in between. Now don't worry about all of the spaces in between those white dots. We'll adjust that later. Now you can see there's a little spike at the end of those dots. That's because this is a medium body paint. That's a multi-surface Martha Stewart paint. And that's why it stands up. I find that the larger size dots really need to be multi-surface paint, where with the smaller size dots, it's okay to use fluid paint. Especially because, now this is going on plastic. Technically, I think I should be using multi-surface for all the paints, but because I'm varnishing so much at the end, I really feel like it's going to protect the surface, and there won't be any chipping or cracking. Now we're going to let that dry, and just let that sit for a couple hours. Make sure that it's okay to touch it before going in and placing more dots. Now we're working on the top with a smaller size dot in between those 2 green dots. So here we are at the top of the bauble. I'm going to just dry fit that tool right at the top. And what I found is that I can't squeeze in another dot right there. So what I do is I just skip a space, right? So we'll dot right here, skip that next blank spot, dot again, and that's completely fine. You're allowed to do that. See how that works? Now we have the top completely done. So now we're going to let that dry. And once that's dry, we'll work on the bottom. So you'll see there's a lot of dry time with these, which is fine because oftentimes we'll be working on multiple baubles at the same time. So now we're going to start on the bottom. This is number 10, and this color blows my mind. This is ochre, and it is gorgeous. It's just the funkiest color, and I totally appreciate it. You all know I'm not a big yellow fan, but ochre is a different story. This one I can get behind. And this is the DecoArt Americana. It's a fluid paint, and it's got a high flow rate, so you want to watch this one with some of the bigger dots, but this size is just fine. And again, it's just the same as the previous dots. We're just going to put a dot right in between the 2 previous ones, right in that center section. And now you can pick whatever tool you'd like, but I'm picking number 6 for the next color. And again, just pick a color that you like. Now it's time for a color change. We're going in with number 9 and just placing a dot right in between those purple dots. One of the things I loved about this project was not feeling like I was had any kind of color palette that I needed to stick to. Like, these are literally just 10 colors that I just wanted to play with. And they don't necessarily scream Christmas, they're just happy, bright colors, and that's it. Okay, so here is another situation where I skipped the space. So place a dot, skip the next space, and then place another dot. Just like that. That also helps if you have divided your bauble into quarters rather than thirds. You couldn't do that. But the math works out on this one, so we're just gonna leave it like that. Okay, so all the paint is dry. I think you can see the difference between the multi-surface paints and the flat fluid acrylics. Now we're going to go in between all those spaces that kind of where there's no dot and take care of that. We're going to make smaller dots in those spaces. And as you can see, that just adds another opportunity for color. And anywhere you see where there's an empty space, feel free to place a smaller dot. And then also we're going to go in with some top dots and really pump up the vibrancy. I love the way that red looks on that blue. It's just electric. And you can also play with the texture by using thicker paints. So that red is a folk art multi-surface paint, so that's going to stand up a little bit higher off the surface. When it dries, it's going to have a nice bump on the end. And yeah, this is really where you can play with colors. This is so much fun. Each bauble is going to be different and unique, and it's because you're using all the same colors, it's going to look like it comes from a collection. So it's really, really fun. And there's my ochre. Oh my gosh, this color, guys. Can you stand it? I love it. So this is where you can really play with vibrancy and break all the rules, all the color rules. Who cares if they are, you know, secondary, primary, tertiary, whatever E-R-E. Just make it look cool and go for like whatever colors you want to see next to each other. Just see what happens. I think that's part of the fun of this. So at this point, I needed to go do something. So I put a hanger in the top, and then I just went and hung that up and allowed it to dry so that I could come back in and work on the bottom. In the end, it's completely up to you how many times you want to go over these dots with top dots, how much detail you'd like to add. I can tell you that I'm one of those people who can sit and endlessly tweak, but at a certain point, you just gotta say it's done. And this is where I landed on this one. I was super, super happy. I think it's just a real interesting and unique bauble. So now we're gonna go in and once the paint, make sure the paint is completely dry before you do this. take your a wet towel and just wipe away those chalk lines. Now, you'll see that these wipe away pretty good on this one. They did not on another one, but they would if you use like a chalk pencil or a watercolor pencil, it would wash away a lot easier. But you want to get the surface all nice and clean. And then I saw that dot and it bothered me. It was basically paint that hadn't been fully stirred. If you see cracking, that's what's up. So now we're going to add a high gloss varnish. This is my favorite. This is Liquitex. You'll need a grungy paintbrush. No, I'm just kidding. You can use a nice paintbrush. I just don't have them. All of my paintbrushes are grungy. I'm pretty rough on them. So when applying the varnish to your bauble, make sure that you have the hook already inserted into the ornament holder at the top. That'll just help you out when it comes time to hang this up in the end. The major things that you just need to be aware of when varnishing is just don't add too much for the first coat of varnish. You'll want to keep it light and thin so that you don't get any drips or bubbles. And this is going to seal the paint. You can do this one or two times, depending on how glossy you want and how much protection you'd like. I know for mine, I pack them away every year, and so I want to make sure that they are protected and not scratched up when they're in the box. But yeah, that's what you want to do. You can also see that it really adds to the color, makes all of the colors really pop, and there you go. Don't you just love a hand-painted ornament? I hope you're painting this holiday season. It's so good for you. You know what else is good for you? Liking YouTube videos that your buddy Rachel made. You can also subscribe so you can see all the other holiday dots we're going to throw down this year, last year, and the next. And in the meantime, feel free to support this channel by heading over to thedottingcenter.com to grab some dotting supplies for you or a friend. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time. See ya.